Okay, thank you so much for joining us for this live event today. Thank you again. This presentation, this webinar is to do with communication during the publication cycle. In this presentation, we are going to teach you and help you, I hope, to be more effective when it comes to communicating with editors and reviewers as your paper passes through the process, that black box between submission and final acceptance of academic articles. So communication during the publication cycle. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for listening. This is a presentation brought to you jointly with Bentham Science, our colleagues who are publishers of ebooks and journals, including open access journals across the spectrum of science and medicine and technology. So thank you once again for joining us. It is great to have the chance to do this presentation. My name is Gareth Dyke. I've worked for a number of years in Ireland, in the UK, in Hungary, and I am the editor-in-chief of a number of journals working with a number of different publishing companies. And so for the last few years, I've been working as a trainer, as an editor, helping colleagues around the world who do not speak English as a first language to write and communicate more effectively as you aim to get your articles effectively published in those leading international journals. So thank you once again for the opportunity to do this, and thank you so much for listening. What are we going to be talking about in our webinar, in our presentation today? We are going to talk about two aspects of communication as articles are submitted and written and sent off to those international journals, the stages of the publishing cycle, and how you can understand and how you can manage the different stages of the publishing cycle as an author. And then we're also going to talk about how to communicate with editors and with reviewers. So some tips and tricks from us to you in terms of good and bad communication, what to do and what not to do. You can avoid making errors in the submission process. You can maximize your paper's chances of being successfully published in your target journal, Bentham Science journals, or any other journal that you submit to by using some of the communication tips that we're going to pass on to you from our experience managing and dealing with journals, managing and dealing with authors over the years. So thank you once again for listening. Our framework, the stages of the publishing cycle, and then good and bad communication in terms of tips and tricks to maximize your success as an author. Here is the academic publishing cycle. Stage one, you come up with an idea for your next piece of research. Stage two, then often you have to go out and find the funding to make sure that you have the money to do the project. We've all experienced this. I experienced this a lot as an academic, having good ideas, but then having to find the funding in order to get those ideas off the ground. So that is another area of training that we certainly can provide you with if you need extra support in that area. How to write funding applications, how to get your work successfully funded. Then comes data collection, which of course, as a working and publishing academic, you're very good at data collection. But what about journal selection? What about paper writing? And what about submission? And what about peer review and publication? Often academics, colleagues around the world don't know much about stage 4, maybe stage 5, maybe stage 6, and maybe stage 7. How to manage the journal selection, paper writing, submission, peer review, and publication stages. And so that's where we come in, our training, Our workshops, our webinars, our structured academic training for colleagues around the world can help you to be more effective at these different aspects of the academic publishing cycle. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to discuss in detail how you can be effective as a communicator, making sure that your work has the best possible chance of successful publication in those target journals. And of course, in English, academic communication is absolutely key. Dear sir, many thanks for asking whether we would like to publish your paper. It's good and original, but unfortunately we are simply not willing to publish it. The trouble is that the good bits were not original and the original bits were not good, from the editors back to you as an author. How many times have we experienced this as writing and publishing academics? It's so important to effectively communicate. It's so important to get that right when you make your submissions to journals, because clear, effective, polite, constructive English communication with your submissions will dramatically help your papers to be successful as you submit them to those international journals. I'm sure that your research is fantastic. You wouldn't be in the position that you're in as an academic working if you were not an excellent researcher. But what about writing up and communicating your work to journals to give it the best possible chance of eventual acceptance? What about those academic editors? And don't worry, don't forget that the word editor in English can actually mean a range of different roles. Journal managing editors, these are the professionals, the people who are the business perspective on the journal. They're overseeing maybe a particular academic journal or a suite of academic journals. You may not actually, as an author, interact with somebody like that all that much. You will interact with what we refer to as academic editors and language editors often. Your academic editors are the people who are controlling the journal content. They're the ones sending papers out for peer review. They're the ones handling peer review when it comes back from the reviewers, from those external experts who've been tasked, who've been invited to provide an evaluation of your paper. They may not be paid professionals, and that's something that we need to keep in mind. We'll come back to that in a minute, but the academic editors are the decision makers. They're the subject area specialists. They're the individuals who are taking submissions, deciding if submissions are suitable for publication in that journal, and then they're selecting and sending those submissions out to reviewers. On the other hand, you may very well also interact with language editors, people who are responsible for helping you make your English better, improving the English language. These are colleagues who have a good subject area understanding, again, but they're not decision makers. They're people who are looking at your English and making it better if possible. So we are here to help you crack the system and understand the different roles that different people play in the manuscript workflow, in the submission and publishing system, and helping you to effectively communicate. Because communication in English, effective communication in English, is key to hacking the journal system, to making sure that your work, as we've discussed, has the best possible chance of eventual acceptance. So don't bury your head in the sand as an author. Don't worry. We are here to help, to understand who you're talking to, who you're communicating with, and then making sure that your communication is as good as it can be as you engage with those academic journals. So let's begin the process, the academic workflow process. The first stage, of course, is journal selection, picking a target journal. And if you've been following this series of webinars, you'll know that often target journal selection is one of the things that successful academic authors do at the beginning of the process. Many successful academics, they don't start to write until they've decided on that target journal. And how can you do this? Well, you can do this by talking to editors, by communicating with editors and making what we call pre-submission inquiries. So making a list of potential target journals, and we always encourage people to make a list of 5 or 10 journals in their subject area where they'd like to see their work published, and then rank that list by impact factor, and then go down the list with the pre-submission inquiries. You commit yourself to nothing, and you can tee up, if I can use a golf analogy, you can get a target journal selected before you make that initial submission. So for this reason, the first stage of the communication process can often involve pre-submission inquiries. Be effective, save yourself valuable time.